Well, good evening, Fairfax viewers, community. We have another extraordinary person on tonight. Like a lot of the other people that we've had on, it's a bit of a bumpy journey, but it's one that is really positive and it's one that's making a real change for many people. I have with me Sergeant Barry Randall, who is a police officer with the Victorian Police Force and has been so for 29 years. Barry, thanks for joining us on the Fairfax.
Oh, good evening, Ross. Thank you very much for having me.
Let's kick right into it. You have been in the police force for 29 years. You started in 94, 95. However, very, very shortly into your career, something very, very traumatic happened. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was November of 95, Ross. I was up at Wodonga. So I joined the police force in 94 and I graduated in early 95 and was quite fortunate to be able to go to Wodonga as my training station. Fortunate insofar as I was from New South Wales originally. So it just gave me the opportunity to get back closer to home, to family and friends. And 9 months in, I attended a job that was rung through as a noisy party. I just came through in the same way most of those run-of-the-mill type jobs do on a Friday and a Saturday night. There was nothing sort of untoward or suspicious about the nature of the job. It was literally a neighbour sort of complaining about the people next door. Loud music, having another party. It's a regular thing. Could you come and please just ask them to turn it down? It was about 3 o'clock in the morning when we arrived, and walking up to the house and knocking on the door and just sort of listening for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, my partner and I realised very quickly that there was something more than a noisy party going on. We could hear yelling and screaming inside the house. And long story short, there was a domestic situation that had been ongoing for some hours. And whilst we were standing on the porch talking to the husband within the household, his wife unfortunately came out of the front door carrying 2 carving knives and proceeded to chase after my partner and I, and that ended up with a fatal police shooting where she was shot and she passed away on the in the front yard. And there was a whole range of things that sort of followed after that. It was a very dynamic sort of situation over the following minutes with a number of people coming out from neighbouring homes, and the situation escalated very quickly, and my partner and I were very much in fear of what was going to happen as a result of that incident.
I've watched it. I think it's about 10 years old now. It was a documentary by Terry Carline and John Sylvester called Trigger Point that looked at police shootings, and the ex-Chief Commissioner Ken Lay spoke about he's never, ever run into a police officer who has been involved in a police shooting that hasn't been severely and really badly affected by it. How difficult was it for you in the months after dealing with everything that had happened? How stressful is it?
Yeah, as cliched as it might sound, Ross, it was a roller coaster. I had just turned 22. I didn't have any family, friends. They were the nearest family was sort of 7, 8 hours away. And when I say I didn't have friends, my long-time friends since childhood, that was very absent. And I think that probably was a real critical situation to have that lack of family and a very close-knit family circle around me. So I think that probably allowed me the opportunity to go down some dark paths that perhaps others might have been able to guide me away from. I started to drink more than I normally would. I wasn't much of a drinker at all until that incident. And I was very fortunate that I was close to another colleague, and he and I were good mates, and he kind of recognised that I wasn't traveling very well, and he sort of stepped in and said, "Come and stay with me. I want you to come and just have a week or two at my place, and we're just going to hang out together, and I'm going to look after you." And I'll be eternally grateful to him for the support that he provided and I suppose the recognition he had that I wasn't doing very well, nightmares. When I could go to sleep, it was just it was broken and just not quality. Most nights, however, I would wake at around 3 a.m., the same time that the incident took place, after just reliving the incident over and over in dreams. So that sort of led to insomnia. There was a fear of going to sleep because I knew that I would dream about and think about the incident. So there was a whole range of different sort of symptoms that I suffered. And ultimately in early 96, I was diagnosed with PTSD.
Is it compounded also by the fact that no police officer ever wants to actually shoot someone, but then all the official investigations and inquiries that have to take place, they can take years, can't they?
Yeah, and this is back in, as I say, 95, when the processes were very different to what they are now, and we were in a country area. So there was a significant delay with how that incident was addressed and managed. You've got to wait for the homicide squad to come out, internal affairs come out. So they're all travelling hours from the city. It's 3 a.m. So my shift began at 11 o'clock the evening before, and I think I left at 4 o'clock in the afternoon from the office. So we returned to the station at maybe 3:30, 4 a.m., and I was there for another 12 hours because I had to wait for all of those official processes, ballistic testing of our clothing in relation to gunshot residue, psychology, the homicide squad, et cetera. So, definitely not anything that I expected to go through probably any time in my career, let alone 9 months after graduating.
How hard was it to go back to work?
Yeah, that was an interesting dilemma. I was given a whole range of mixed messages and advice. When you're a rookie, you do look to those experienced members for guidance. So I had some of the more older school members sort of saying, do not take time off no matter what you do. This will be a black mark against you on your resume. It will hamper and hinder any future career prospects for you. And then I had some other members saying, don't listen to that. That's garbage. You take off the time that you need. This is a traumatic and significant incident in your life. You need to look after yourself. So there was this at 22, as I said, no real tight circle around me to provide that guidance or advice, having to then weigh up some decisions that may be hugely impactful, not only on my life but on my career. So I think in the end I only had about 4 weeks off, and 2 of that was my own annual leave. And then I was back into it, and I discovered very quickly that was the wrong thing to do. I came back to work with hypervigilance, thinking that every single job I went to, someone was going to try and attack me. Having been the victim of an attempted murder only a month earlier, that didn't matter what I went to. I was waiting for this, whatever job it was, to escalate at 100 miles an hour, which, that's fairly rare for the majority of the jobs that we go to. So it took a long time just to, I think, chill a little bit and realize that I didn't have to, fear the worst at every job.
And just to add another layer to that, we were talking off air just before that there were certainly intended reprisals towards yourself and the partner, weren't there, from those related or who knew the assailant afterwards? Yeah,
without going into sort of the real specifics of it, yes, there was, I think it was maybe 10 or 11 months later, the inquest was held. And as a result of that, my partner and I, our identities were obviously revealed. We were the front page of the Herald Sun and local newspapers and so forth. So there was then a bit of a campaign that included threats to kill, and ultimately kind of led me to, I suppose, reassess not only my own safety, but just quality of life. And sadly, I had to leave an area that I actually really enjoyed living in. As a border town and a country town, it offered a great deal. But what it did do was that it opened an opportunity for me to be able to make a move back to the ocean, having grown up on the New South Wales Central Coast, and had a life that was pretty entrenched in the sea and sports and so forth. coming down to the Mornington Peninsula, where I am now, was probably a bit of a saving grace for me, to be honest.
What did the ocean do for you in that time when you were recovering with your PTSD?
Yeah, I've been asked that question quite a few times, Ross, and sometimes it's really hard to articulate what the ocean does do for me and what it means to me. But I think that in the simplest way, it seems to reset my brain. Whether that's some sort of DNA genetic throwback to our existence. We come from the sea, and then when I go back into the sea, there's just something about the salt water that I find calming and peaceful. It provides an opportunity to just forget about all the other stress. I don't seem to focus or think about anything else in my life. I'm just very much in the moment, in the water. And then when you add obviously the surfing aspect, which is one of my my true hobbies and passions in life, that combination I think has just been extremely beneficial for my mental and physical health.
Well, I can certainly see what you're saying, Barry. Being a saltwater baby, I love the bay and the ocean, and there is something about it, isn't there? And there's actually we'll move on to your amazing project, but they have done tests, haven't they? Actual neuro tests on US soldiers, because they have implemented surfing programs for US soldiers, haven't they? And they've measured the brain waves. And when they're surfing, they're so focused and so in the moment, it shows a real change in their brain waves, and it can show how it helps them so much.
Yeah, they really have been at the forefront of surf therapy in the US. There's a couple of programs that I have found really inspirational, and I've been fortunate to be able to speak with those programs numerous times for some guidance and advice. There's the One More Wave program in San Diego that a couple of former Navy SEALs started, and there's another one in Northern California that focuses on veterans, particularly veterans with disabilities. And yeah, the data that is coming out of their programs, whether that's psychological and scientific, as you say, with the brain waves, it's almost irrefutable. The data is there to show that surfing in the ocean just has a beneficial and therapeutic, positive response.
So if you haven't already done enough for the people of Victoria by doing 29 years in the police force and continue, tell me about your amazing program for people with PTSD.
During our wonderful lockdown, I had a bit of time on my hands at home to think about something I might be able to do that I enjoyed doing and that might be beneficial to others. And I'd had this idea of a surf therapy program in the back of my mind for a while. I was getting towards the end of my rugby league and rugby union career. I'd held on to that for far too long, and I knew I would need something to replace walking away from what was a big part of my life with sport. And I spoke to a few different people within the surfing industry in Victoria, and particularly down here on the Mornington Peninsula, about an idea that I had of doing some sort of learn to surf program, surf therapy program for first responders and veterans. And to my surprise, the response and the support was overwhelming. I thought that during a global pandemic that I would really struggle to get the support I needed to launch, a new program, but it was quite the opposite. And in late 2021, we launched our first program for a mix of veterans and first responders. We had 10 soul surfers involved. It's a 4-week program. And since that first one, we've now put a little over 120 participants through the program. And I've got another 60, I think, already booked in for the upcoming spring and summer.
So how does it work?
So it's a 4-week program. It's 4 consecutive Saturdays down on the Mornington Peninsula. Everything is provided. So the participants literally just rock up to the beach on the day, and we provide everything: surfboard, wetsuits. We do a lunch thanks to some of the sponsors that are on board. And what we offer is a bit of a holistic approach to surf therapy. We have some wonderful surf coaches, including a psychiatrist, and we put together a program that is very much aimed at beginners So it is a learn to surf program.
Yep.
So for people that either haven't surfed or surfed many years ago and really are well out of touch with it and would like to start again. And it's just about providing an alternate pathway to, it might be a cliched term now, but post-traumatic growth is certainly something that I truly do believe in. I like to think I don't have a disorder. I don't like that term. I know that's what appears in, all the official terminology, but I think a lot of people experience post-traumatic stress within the first responder and veteran community, but I don't know if for all of us that necessarily morphs into a disorder. I like to think that over the last 25 plus years, I've managed my health very well. And I want to provide an opportunity just through an alternate pathway for others that have experienced trauma to realise that there is that scope for growth, and that maybe this is a way in which they can do that.
How do people get referred to your program, or how do people find out about your program?
Yeah, we've had a number of different sort of avenues for that to happen. Social media has been very positive for us, and we've got a huge amount of our referrals. So we have an application form on our website. So we have a number of different organisations and groups that will direct their members to our website. So we've been involved with RSL Victoria and their RSL Active program. So they promote amongst their own membership who we are and what we do, and we receive a lot of applications through that process. I was very surprised to learn only recently a number of the applicants that got in touch with me were referred to me via our Victorian Police welfare unit.
Wow.
So that was really nice to know that, that they're aware of who I am and what I'm doing, and that they actually suggested to a couple of people that reached out for counselling and psychological support, which I'm all for. I certainly don't say that what I do is the panacea for everyone's issues, and it shouldn't be necessarily to replace any of the more traditional therapies. So I was glad that when they were seeking assistance for that type of therapy, that police welfare actually said, in addition to that, we want to make you aware of this particular program that a member is running, and maybe it might be beneficial for you as well. So we have a whole different range of referral sort of opportunities.
In case someone hasn't been referred and someone's listening or watching this, could you please give us a little plug? Could you let us know what the Instagram site is and what the website is, please, and any other links that people can get to you?
Yeah, so all our social media, Ross, is just Operation Soul Surf, and the website is operationsoulsurf.com.
Yep.
And there's a whole range of information that's available about how our programs work, what our aim and mission is. And one of the tabs there is the application process to get in contact with us. But I'm happy for anyone just to reach out, even via Instagram and Facebook. They can just send a direct message to Soul Surf, and one of the team will get back to them.
Tell me some of the changes you've seen with some of the participants without giving away anything personal. What are some of the more satisfying things you've seen?
Yeah, that has been probably the most rewarding aspect of what I've been doing, is just seeing some of the changes are significant. They're quite profound. So I know this chap won't mind me telling you his story. So I was in touch with a firefighter early last year. He was umming and ahhing about whether or not this was something that would be good for him. And the more that I spoke to him, the more I learnt about his situation. And he had not been at work for about 4 months. He'd been off as a result of some mental health issues. He hadn't left home for 3 months. He had not walked out his front door for, it was 11 or 12 weeks, just due to his high levels of anxiety and a whole range of other things that he was sort of dealing with. So after a fair bit of encouragement and coaxing, he managed to get himself to day one of the program. And I could see when I met him in the car park that he was extremely nervous. At one point sort of saying, I'm shitting myself, Baz. I do not know why I'm here. And I said to him, just be as chilled as you can be. There's no expectation. And if you decide even today you don't want to get in the water and you need to go home, that won't be an issue. No one will be disappointed with you, but we're here for you. And he put up with those feelings for the next sort of half an hour, and in the end decided to get into the water. At the end of that first session, the smile on his face was just amazing. And the last thing he said to me was, "I cannot wait until next week." So he did the 4-week program. The week after that program finished, he bought his first surfboard. A couple of weeks later, he bought his second surfboard because he wasn't quite happy with the length of the first one, and he bought a new wetsuit. And then the phone calls to me started and the text messages. "Have you got next Wednesday off? Let's go for a surf." So for the last year, he and I catch up probably once a week and we surf together. He brought in 2 or 3 other fireys. They now have been on the program and we surf together. So he's just one example of, I won't say life-changing, it probably was for him, but just of an example of where what I think is just a very small thing that I'm doing. It's nothing, magical or too brilliant. It's a very small and simple process and program, but it has had a profound impact on him. So from 3 months of not leaving home to just being so eager to get out in the water and have a surf, and it's changed his life dramatically. He was back at work a couple of months later. He's back full time now. It improved his relationship with his wife, his family, his colleagues, and for me, that's a massive win.
Yeah. I often say to my wife when we're on the beach and we see our 3 kids coming out of the water, no one comes out of the ocean that isn't smiling. Well, perhaps maybe someone who's been bitten by a stinger or a shark, but there is something about it, isn't it? There's just a pure, simple, natural joy to the ocean.
There is, Ross, and others have heard me say this many times, but I'll say it again. I often think I should have called my program Smiles for Miles, because I'm often one of the safety coaches a little closer to shore. Yep. Where we surf is often off a reef break. Mm-hmm. So we just sort of, I put myself in a position where they won't come unstuck near the rocks. Yep. But that position means that what I see is the surfers coming towards me on every wave, and I see the smile and the reaction, and it's, that just brightens up my day.
So can people stay involved once they've finished the 4 weeks, or is it more an unofficial thing like where this firefighter goes surfing with you once a week and that sort of thing? Are there sort of social groups that form after the program?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've actually had a Victorian Police member who's now ill health retired. I think he has done 3 programs with me. Wow. I just saw the huge benefit to him and just said to him that the ongoing engagement I was more than happy to sort of provide for him. He lives 211 kilometres from the nearest beach.
Wow.
And within the first 3 months of last year, he'd surfed something like 17 times. So he's either driving, I think it's 211 Ks to a Torquay for him, or about 210, 211 to come to me at Point Leo. Wow. So he's doing that regularly. He's doing 400 sort of Ks plus. His kids now surf, and he bought his wife a boogie board last year, and now she's got into boogie boarding. So the entire family now do, the day trip for a surf, and he raves about the positive impact that's had on him and his family. So we've done that for a few participants where we can just see they want to keep going. And then we also have a surfing group. We all keep in touch through an app, and some of the graduates will just put on there, I'm going to Point Leo on Sunday at 10 a.m. And then you just see it kind of lights up. Me too, I'm coming. So there's this real community, which is what I thought might happen. I certainly didn't push for it. It just was very organic. And that's been, very rewarding as well. So there's certainly a number of different options for that ongoing engagement, and I'm pretty keen to see that continue.
What's the cost for the program, Barry?
Thankfully, through the support of sponsors and a few organisations, it's provided free of charge to all participants. So wow. The entire program, all the equipment, their lunch, it's just turn up and enjoy 3 hours and leave. Cost you nothing.
Can we mention some of those generous sponsors?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, probably the The longest standing one so far has been Young Veterans Australia, so a veterans charity, and Matt Keane is the CEO, and from day one, he jumped on board and he's been a terrific supporter. The 000 Foundation, who are involved with the Melbourne Stair Climb. So Chris May and Trent Egan from the 000 Foundation have been wonderful supporters. And I've had courses sponsored by the Code 9 Foundation. So a number of different charities and organisations that have seen real value in what I'm doing, and I'm quite grateful. So unfortunately, given the small niche program that I run, I don't meet the criteria for a lot of different council and government grants. Sadly, they want to see a bit more bang for their buck. The return on investment is not, it doesn't hit the mark for their criteria. So I've been quite fortunate. There are some businesses and charities who don't have that as part of their, their requirement, and that they've been very good in helping me out.
How does the program help you? 29 years in, you had a very nasty start to your career. You've been in for 3 decades. You would have seen some pretty horrible things in those times. How does it keep you centered?
I think going back to what I mentioned earlier, Ross, that it's just a reset of my brain. And it's actually at the stage where my own family can see it. So to be told by your wife, I think tomorrow you need to go surfing, that's every bloke's dream.
Yeah.
Here I am thinking that I'm supposed to be whippersnipping or mowing or doing something, on my day off. And your wife says, okay, you've had a big week. Grab your wetsuit, grab your board. I'll look after whatever needs to be done tomorrow, and I'll just see you when you get back from the beach. So
how do you seen a fair few changes in your time in policing? How do you see it now as opposed to when you started?
It's certainly very different. I think overall the changes in relation to mental health and member wellbeing, that's certainly been very positive. I did personally experience, and I suppose witness, a lot of things over my time where you kind of feel like we've dropped the ball and we could have done more or done better. And I think that's been recognised as well. And a lot of work has gone into trying to improve that. We obviously had the mental health review some years ago, and a whole range of recommendations were made to Victorian Police, and it did not take long for command to, address and rectify those things. So definitely have seen some positive changes, and I think there's still a stigma there around openly discussing your mental health. It's been a taboo subject for a long time within the first responder and veteran communities, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges I think for us, is just trying to break down those sort of barriers and those walls for members to feel like it isn't a taboo subject. If you broke your arm playing footy on the weekend, you'd tell all and sundry about the injury. It wouldn't bother you. But when it comes to a mental injury, we seem to just want to play our cards very close.
Is there a concern amongst police officers that if they do show their cards too much, then they'll be removed from duty, and there's a fear that they may not be able to return?
Yeah, I think that probably is in the back of a lot of members' minds. I mean, I can't speak for other people, but for me personally, that certainly was a concern. And then when you have that added feedback from other members who are more experienced and senior telling you it will be a black mark against your name, it probably is, very much a concern that serving members still have now. So I think it's been good over recent times to see senior members come out and talk about some of their own experiences, and I suppose showing that they can relate to the troops that are at the coalface of what's going on, the general duties coppers. It kind of, I suppose, feels like others have your back a little bit.
Do you have any paramedics in your surfing program?
Yeah, Ambulance Victoria won't like me saying this, but they should sponsor the next course, Ross. There are so many, there are so many ambos, and I love it. We've had some terrific participants. Yeah, there's a terrific AV member, Lisa, who's done the program a couple of times. She's coming back a third time, and she has definitely whipped up a posse of paramedics. And I think of the next 10 participants, 7 or 8 are from Ambulance Victoria. So that's wonderful to see so many AV members reach out and get involved. So
Your program is extraordinary because if you look at armed forces, any of the first responders, paramedics, police, firefighters, CFA, SES, all those jobs are joined with a passion and something that people have normally dreamed of, and they do the job for one reason and one reason only, and that is to help others. Unfortunately, PTSD is a massive part of all those career paths, and it's fantastic to see something like this become available for people, Barry.
yeah, it's been very rewarding, Ross. And as I said, it's a simple thing to do. I mean, obviously, there's some time constraints for me. I'm still an acting and serving member, so there is a fair bit of work in my own time to go into it. But at the end of the day, it's easily manageable. So I just feel for what seems like to me quite a simple thing to do, the benefits and the rewards seem to be very significant. So I found it, very rewarding.
It's no coincidence, is it? It's simple, but it's taking people back to nature, back to something pure, and certainly a far better therapy than, say, alcohol or other things for people when they've got PTSD.
Absolutely, and I think it's probably well known globally that hitting the bottle is a way that a lot of first responders have dealt with traumatic experiences and critical incidents. Traditionally, it's a very easy thing to do, but the health ramifications are quite significant. So, and the surfing side of things it's very much a whole of body experience. It is quite physical, and I think some people realise they're a little more unfit than they first thought they were when they do start to paddle around. There's some very specific muscles that start to be engaged when you're paddling on
some
surf.
Unused muscles.
Some unused muscles. So there's a few of them that enjoy the lunch that comes afterwards, after session number 1. But I'm sure that after those first couple of sessions, they just do see the positives of doing something, as you say, very natural and in the environment. And I think I'm very fortunate that the playground that we have offers just some amazing natural beauty, particularly when we're at Point Leo or down at Shoreham. There's very minimal infrastructure there. It's still a very untouched sort of natural environment, and that certainly adds to, I think, the whole experience.
Can you please just replug your social hubs, please, so that people can get involved and contact?
Yeah, so Operation Soul Surf on Instagram and on Facebook, and the website, is operationsoulsurf.com.
Barry, thank you for joining the Bare Facts. You keep saying it's simple, but it's quite extraordinary what you're doing. And as I said, as a saltwater baby, I completely understand it. And it's fantastic. It's really, really good. And we thank you for joining us, and we thank you for your fantastic work, not only as a police officer, but also someone who's helping first responders deal with mental health issues from the job.
Thank you very much, Ross. I think that I regularly say that it's simple because I'm still suffering from imposter syndrome, and I don't know if I'll ever sort of get over that. So I like to just try and minimize what I do as much as possible.
Well, it's terrific, and we thank you.
Thank you very much, and I love what you do, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Barry.